Cooper was a perfectly trained Labrador. He never barked at neighbors. He never jumped on furniture. He knew the rules of Emma's new house completely. That is why the dirty object on the guest bed made no sense at all. It was a dark, deliberate message. Emma stood in the doorway of the guest room. Her hands shook slightly. Sitting in the exact center of the clean, white pillow was a ball of wet mud. It was black, sticky, and smelled terrible. Cooper sat next to the bed, wagging his tail proudly. "Cooper, what did you do?" Emma whispered. She was a busy young businesswoman. She had invited Mr. Arthur, her company's old, trusted accountant, to stay for the weekend. Arthur was like a kind grandfather to her. He was downstairs drinking tea right now. Before Emma could clean the mess, Arthur walked up the stairs. He stepped into the room and saw the muddy pillow. Emma expected him to laugh or maybe look annoyed. Instead, the old man's face turned completely white. His eyes grew wide with sudden, pure terror. "Get that dirty animal out of here," Arthur shouted loudly. His voice was shaking with extreme anger and fear. He raised his walking stick as if to hit the friendly dog. Cooper did not run away. The dog stood tall and growled softly at the old man. Emma was shocked. Arthur was always so gentle. "I am so sorry, Arthur. I will clean it immediately," she said quickly. She grabbed a tissue and picked up the wet ball of mud. As she brought it close to her face, she noticed something very strange. The black mud smelled strongly of wet dirt and dead leaves. But underneath the natural smells, there was a sharp, chemical scent. It was a very expensive, spicy men's cologne. Emma recognized the smell instantly. It was the exact same cologne Arthur wore every single day. Why did a random ball of mud from her backyard smell exactly like her accountant? Cooper was not a bad dog. He was trying to show her something important. Emma looked at the dog, then at the terrified old man. A cold feeling touched her heart. Arthur quickly packed his travel bag. He did not look at Emma. "I suddenly feel sick. I must go home tonight," he lied nervously. He walked out of the front door into the dark night. Emma watched his car drive away quickly down the quiet street. Emma walked out to the backyard with a flashlight. The night air was cool and silent. Cooper ran ahead of her, leading the way. He stopped at the far corner of the wooden fence. He began to scratch the dark earth. The mystery was buried right there. The next morning, the bright sun lit up the backyard. Emma stood by the kitchen window, drinking her coffee. She watched Cooper. The dog was completely obsessed. He was digging wildly in the exact same corner near the wooden fence. Dirt flew everywhere in the air. Emma walked outside and pulled his collar. "Stop it, Cooper." "Bad boy," she scolded him loudly. The dog stopped and whined sadly. But as soon as Emma turned her back, he started digging again. He was acting like his life depended on opening that dark hole. Emma was a practical woman. She thought the dog was just chasing a wild rabbit or a hidden bone. She decided to fix the problem permanently. She drove to the local garden center and bought a large, heavy rose bush full of sharp, dangerous thorns. She planted the thorny rose bush directly over the hole. She packed the dirt down hard. "There," Emma said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "No more digging." She brought Cooper inside the house and locked the back door. She felt proud of her simple, smart solution. That night, Emma slept deeply. She did not hear the soft sounds coming from the backyard. The moon shone brightly over the quiet garden. The loyal dog had found a way out through the loose garage window. He had a vital mission to complete for his owner. When Emma woke up, she called for Cooper. The dog did not come to the kitchen for his breakfast. She felt a sudden panic. She ran to the back door and looked out into the garden. The beautiful new rose bush was completely destroyed and ripped apart. Cooper was lying in the dirt, breathing heavily. Emma ran to him, tears filling her eyes. The dog's soft nose and front paws were covered in bright red blood. He had dug straight through the sharp thorns all night long. He refused to give up the fight. "Oh, my brave boy, why are you doing this?" Emma cried softly. She knelt in the dirt to clean his bleeding paws. As she sat there, she finally looked closely at the deep hole he had created. Her heart skipped a beat in her chest. Dogs usually dig messy, round holes to hide their bones. But this hole was completely different. The edges of the dirt were straight and sharp. The hole was a perfect, deep rectangle. Nature does not make perfect straight lines. A human had clearly dug this exact spot before. Someone had buried a large, artificial object in her backyard. Cooper had smelled the human sweat and the disturbed earth. The dog had tried to warn her with a muddy pillow. Now, Emma knew she was standing on top of a very dangerous, hidden secret. Emma carefully bandaged Cooper's bleeding paws. She felt terrified and confused. Why would someone bury a rectangular object in her garden? She needed professional advice. She called an expert dog trainer named Mark. He arrived at her house an hour later to examine the strange situation. Mark looked at the deep rectangular hole. He watched Cooper carefully. The dog was still trying to scratch the dirt with his bandaged paws. Mark turned to Emma with a very serious face. "Your dog is not playing, Emma," the trainer said quietly. "He is working." Emma frowned. "Working? I thought he just wanted to bury a bone or find a rat." Mark shook his head. "No. Dogs bury things they love. But Cooper is doing the opposite. This specific behavior is called unearthing. He is trying to remove something completely." Mark pointed at the dark dirt. Dogs have an amazing sense of smell. Cooper smells disturbed earth. He also smells fear hormones from the person who dug this hole. To him, this object is a dangerous threat invading his territory. He is protecting you from an enemy. Emma felt a cold shiver run down her back. A threat? An enemy? She remembered Arthur's terrified face when he saw the mud. She remembered his expensive cologne mixed with the dirt. The trusted old accountant was hiding something terrible right in her own backyard. The trainer left, telling Emma to be very careful. She locked all the doors and sat in her kitchen. Suddenly, her cell phone rang loudly. The caller ID showed Arthur's name. Emma took a deep breath to calm her racing heart and answered the call slowly. "Hello, Emma," Arthur said. His voice sounded surprisingly cheerful and friendly. "I am so sorry I left early last night. I was feeling very sick. I want to apologize by giving you a wonderful gift. I know you want to fix your messy backyard." Emma gripped the phone tightly. "A gift?" she asked softly. "Yes," Arthur continued quickly. "I have hired a professional landscaping team. They will come to your house tomorrow morning. They will dig up the whole yard and plant beautiful new trees. It is completely free for you." The trap was completely obvious. Arthur did not care about her garden. He knew the dog was digging up his secret. He was sending a team of men to dig up the rectangular object and take it away legally. He was using her to hide his crime. That is very kind, Arthur. Thank you. Tomorrow morning is perfect, Emma lied smoothly. She hung up the phone. She looked at Cooper, who was resting his head on her knee. She had less than 12 hours to discover what Arthur had buried in the dark earth. The clock struck midnight. The neighborhood was completely dark and silent. Emma wore dark clothes and thick working gloves. She grabbed a heavy metal shovel from her garage. She walked quietly to the corner of the wooden fence. Cooper followed closely, watching her with intelligent, alert eyes. Emma stepped into the rectangular hole. She pushed the heavy shovel into the loose dirt. It was surprisingly easy to dig. The earth was soft because Arthur had moved it recently. She scooped out the dirt, throwing it to the side in the quiet, cool night air. After digging down for half a meter, the metal shovel hit something hard. Clang! The loud sound echoed in the silent garden. Emma froze, her heart beating wildly in her chest. She dropped to her knees and used her hands to brush away the remaining dark soil. A large, heavy metal box appeared in the dirt. It looked like a military ammunition case. It was completely waterproof and secured with a thick, digital combination lock. This was definitely not old company paperwork. Arthur had buried something incredibly valuable and dangerous in her garden. Emma pulled the heavy metal box out of the deep hole. Her muscles burned with the effort. She dragged the box into her bright kitchen and locked the back door. She stared at the digital lock. She did not know the numbers, but she had a plan. She went to her toolbox and pulled out a long, heavy iron crowbar. She was a strong, independent woman. She pushed the sharp end of the crowbar under the metal lock. She took a deep breath and pushed down with all of her body weight. The metal screamed and bent. With a loud crack, the lock broke completely. Emma dropped the crowbar on the kitchen floor. Her hands were shaking violently as she reached forward. She slowly opened the heavy lid of the metal box, terrified of what she might find inside. There were no weapons or drugs. The box was filled with thick, green paper. Emma gasped loudly and stepped back. Inside the waterproof case were dozens of neat, thick stacks of money. They were all brand new $100 bills, wrapped tightly in clear plastic bags. Emma pulled out one stack. It felt heavy and incredibly real. She quickly calculated the math in her head. Counting the rows and columns, the box contained at least $1 million in pure cash. It was a massive fortune sitting on her own kitchen floor. Why did a boring, quiet accountant have $1 million in dirty cash? He must have stolen it from her company over many years. He buried it here to hide the evidence. Emma felt a deep anger. Her trusted friend was a terrible thief and a liar. Emma knew exactly what she had to do. She could not wait for Arthur's fake gardening team tomorrow morning. She had to take the money straight to the police station tonight. She closed the heavy metal lid and picked up the $1 million box with both hands. She carried the heavy box through the house to the attached garage. She opened the trunk of her car and pushed the metal box deep inside, covering it with an old blanket. She locked the car trunk securely. The evidence was safe for now. Emma walked back into the living room. She picked up her cell phone to call 911. She wanted to request a police escort to the station. She dialed the first two numbers. Suddenly, the bright screen of her smart security system on the wall flashed red. The words "camera signal lost" appeared on the screen. Before Emma could understand what was happening, every single light in her house turned off instantly. The living room became pitch black. The quiet hum of the refrigerator stopped. Someone had completely cut the main power lines outside. Emma stood frozen in the dark. A deep, cold fear grabbed her heart. She held her phone tightly. Then a terrifying sound shattered the silence of the night. Crash. It was the sharp, violent sound of breaking glass coming from the back door in the kitchen. Arthur was a weak, old man. He would never break a glass door by force. The people breaking into her house were not the friendly police. Emma backed away slowly into the dark hallway, trying not to make a single sound. Her phone felt useless in her hand. Cooper did not run away. The brave dog stepped forward into the darkness. He stood firmly between Emma and the kitchen. The dog lowered his head and showed his sharp white teeth. A deep, dangerous growl ripped from his throat. He was ready for a deadly fight. Emma heard heavy boots stepping on the broken glass. There were multiple people inside her home. A bright beam from a tactical flashlight cut through the dark hallway. The light hit Cooper's golden fur, then moved up to blind Emma's eyes. She raised her hands to protect her face. "Do not move, lady," a rough, cold voice commanded from the dark kitchen. "If you scream, we will shoot the dog first. Then we will shoot you." Emma saw the dark shadows of 3 tall men. They were holding large, dangerous guns pointing directly at her chest. This was not a simple company theft. Arthur had not just stolen money from her business. He had stolen money from very dangerous, violent people. And now the true nightmare had arrived at her front door. The $1 million secret had finally come to claim her life. The men pushed Emma into the corner of the living room. She held her hands up, shaking with fear. Cooper stood in front of her, growling deeply. The tall man in the front turned on his bright flashlight. He pointed the painful light straight into Emma's terrified eyes. "Where is the box, lady?" the man asked in a cold, deadly voice. "We know you dug it up." Emma could not see his face. She felt completely confused. Why did these dangerous criminals know about the metal box in her garden? I don't know what you are talking about," Emma lied softly. The tall man laughed a cruel, dark laugh. He stepped aside and pulled someone forward from the dark kitchen. A second flashlight turned on, showing a weak, old man crying quietly. Emma gasped loudly. It was Arthur. But he did not look like a kind grandfather anymore. His face was covered in bruises and blood. His hands were locked tightly behind his back with heavy metal handcuffs. A large man was holding a gun directly against Arthur's back. "Tell her, Arthur," the tall man commanded. "Tell the thief why we are here." Arthur looked at the floor, too ashamed to look Emma in the eyes. "I am sorry, Emma," the old accountant cried. "I told them everything. I told them you stole the money." Emma's mind stopped working. "I stole the money?" she asked, completely shocked. The terrifying truth suddenly hit her like a heavy rock. The $1 million in the metal box did not belong to her company. Arthur had not stolen it from her business. The money belonged to a violent, underground criminal cartel. Arthur was their secret accountant. He helped them hide their dirty cash. But Arthur had made a terrible mistake. He had lost half of their money gambling. He knew the cartel would kill him for his mistake. To save his own life, the old man created a perfect, evil lie. He told the cartel that a smart young businesswoman named Emma had hacked his computer. He lied and said she stole the money and buried it in her own backyard to hide it. Arthur had intentionally planted the $1 million in her garden. He had used her as a perfect scapegoat. He wanted the cartel to kill her instead of him. Emma looked at the crying old man. The person she trusted most had brought death straight to her front door. The tall man raised his gun and pointed it at Emma's chest. "Arthur said you are a very smart thief," the boss said coldly. "He said you took the box from the dirt tonight. Hand it over right now, or you and the dog will die here." Emma looked at the heavy guns. She looked at the old man who had eaten dinner at her table. Her heart broke into pieces. The muddy pillow on the guest bed was not just a warning about stolen money. It was a warning about a deadly trap. The cartel boss stepped closer to Emma. The metal gun touched her forehead. The cold steel made her skin freeze. "You have 10 seconds, the boss whispered dangerously. "Give me the $1 million, or I will pull this trigger." Emma's mind raced with panic. If she told them the money was in her car trunk, they would take it and kill her anyway. Criminals do not leave witnesses behind. She needed to buy some time to think. "It is outside," Emma lied quickly. "The box is still buried in the garden." The boss smiled a cruel smile. "Go check the yard," he ordered the man holding Arthur. The large man dragged the crying accountant out through the broken glass door. The boss kept his gun pointed perfectly still at Emma's shaking head. Cooper continued to growl loudly. A minute later, the large man walked back into the kitchen. He looked extremely angry. "The hole is completely empty, boss," the man reported. "There is only fresh dirt. The metal box is gone." The boss turned his dark, angry eyes back to Emma. "You are playing games with me," the boss yelled. He pulled the hammer of the gun back with his thumb. Click. The loud sound echoed in the dark room. Emma closed her eyes tightly. This was the end. She opened her mouth to confess about the car trunk. She was ready to give up to save Cooper's life. But before she could speak a single word, the brave Labrador leaped forward. Cooper did not attack the man with the gun. He completely ignored the cartel boss. Instead, the heavy dog jumped directly onto Arthur. Arthur screamed loudly as the large dog hit his chest. They both fell backward onto the broken glass on the kitchen floor. Cooper did not bite the old man's face or neck. He aggressively grabbed Arthur's thick winter jacket with his sharp teeth. The dog shook his head violently from side to side. He was tearing the heavy fabric of the jacket pocket apart. "Get this crazy animal off me!" Arthur cried out in pure panic. The boss frowned, watching the strange dog attack with confusion. Emma was shocked too. Cooper was usually a very gentle dog. Why was he attacking the weak, handcuffed man instead of the dangerous boss? The answer came a second later. With a loud ripping sound, Arthur's large jacket pocket tore completely open. Something heavy fell out of the torn pocket and hit the kitchen floor. It did not sound like keys or a phone. The boss pointed his bright flashlight down at the floor near the struggling dog. Everyone in the dark room stopped breathing in total surprise. The bright beam of the flashlight lit up the dark floor perfectly. Two thick, green objects lay on the broken glass, right next to Arthur's shaking hands. They were two heavy stacks of $100 bills. They were wrapped tightly in clear plastic bags with thick rubber bands. The rubber bands matched perfectly with the ones inside the hidden metal box. The cartel boss slowly lowered his gun from Emma's head. He walked over and picked up the green cash from the floor. He stared at the money, then stared coldly at Arthur. "You said the girl stole all the cash," the boss said in a deadly, quiet voice. "So why do you have 2 stacks of our money hidden inside your coat pocket right now?" Arthur's face turned gray. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The terrifying truth was finally clear. Arthur had visited Emma's garden secretly earlier that afternoon. He had dug into the dirt to steal a few stacks of cash for his own escape plan. He wanted to run away before the cartel arrived tonight to kill Emma. But Arthur made one fatal mistake. He did not wash his hands or change his jacket. The strong smell of the dirty money and his own terrified, guilty sweat had soaked into the fabric. Cooper's incredible nose had smelled that exact combination of scents all evening. Cooper did not understand human money. But the smart dog understood the logic of scent. The dog knew that the strange, hidden object in the garden smelled exactly like the old man's pocket. The dog attacked the pocket to expose the hidden danger to his pack. "He is the real thief," Emma shouted, finding her courage. "He buried the box in my yard to frame me. Look at his hands. They are still dirty from digging." The boss grabbed Arthur's hands. Under the handcuffs, the old man's fingernails were packed with dark garden mud. The cartel boss laughed a dark, cruel laugh. He realized the old accountant had played a foolish trick on them. The innocent girl and her dog had accidentally solved the crime. The dog had unmasked the true traitor without saying a single word. "You lied to me, Arthur," the boss whispered, pulling the old man up by his shirt collar. "You stole from us, and you tried to make me kill an innocent woman. That is a very bad mistake." Arthur began to cry and beg for mercy loudly. Emma stood quietly behind her brave dog. She felt a wave of pure relief. Cooper had not just found the secret box. He had forcefully proved her complete innocence to the most dangerous men in the city. Her life was saved by a dog's perfect nose. The cartel boss pushed his gun hard against Arthur's head. "Take him to the van," the boss ordered the large man. "We are going to have a very long, painful talk to find the rest of our money." The large man dragged the screaming accountant out the door. The boss turned to look at the third man, a quiet thug standing near the hallway. "Finish the girl and the dog," the boss commanded coldly. "We cannot leave any living witnesses behind." The boss turned around and walked out to the dark street, leaving Emma to die. The quiet thug raised his heavy gun. He pointed it directly at Emma's chest. Emma closed her eyes tightly, tears falling down her face. She had survived Arthur's evil trap, but she was still going to die. She hugged Cooper's neck, waiting for the loud gunshot. But Cooper was not ready to give up. The dog remembered a fun game Emma had taught him many months ago. It was a simple jumping trick. He looked at the wall near the front door. There was a glowing glass panel on the wall. It was the smart home control screen. Emma used to train Cooper to jump up and touch the wall with his nose for treats. Now, the dog used all his strength to save their lives. Cooper ran forward and leaped high into the air. He threw his heavy, 80-pound body directly at the glass screen on the wall. Crash! The dog hit the panel perfectly. The delicate glass screen shattered completely under his heavy paws. The sudden, violent damage to the security panel triggered an automatic, hidden safety system. Emma had programmed it for extreme emergencies. It was the house's ultimate panic mode. Instantly, the dark house exploded with intense light and sound. Bright, Blinding red lights began flashing wildly in every single room. A deafening, high-pitched alarm siren screamed through the quiet neighborhood. It was so incredibly loud that the walls actually shook with the noise. The sudden chaos terrified the quiet thug. The bright, flashing lights blinded him completely. The incredibly loud siren hurt his ears. He knew the police would arrive in less than 2 minutes. Panic replaced his cold confidence. He lowered his gun, looking around wildly. He could not risk going to prison for murder. The thug cursed loudly, turned around, and ran out the broken back door as fast as he could. He jumped into the waiting cartel van, and the tires screeched as they drove away quickly into the night. Emma opened her eyes. The red lights were flashing and the alarm was screaming. But she was alive. She dropped to the floor and hugged Cooper with all her strength. The smart dog panted happily, wagging his tail. His clever trick had chased the deadly monsters away forever. The loud alarm woke up the entire street. Within 3 minutes, 5 police cars arrived at Emma's house with their sirens wailing. Armed officers rushed inside to protect her. Emma sat safely on her sofa, holding Cooper tightly as she told the police the whole terrifying story. She explained Arthur's terrible betrayal and the dangerous cartel men. Then, she led the police captain to her garage. She opened the trunk of her car and showed him the heavy metal box. The captain was amazed to see the $1 million in dirty cash sitting there. "You are very brave and very lucky, Emma," the captain said. He ordered his tech team to recover the video files from her broken security system. The hidden backup cameras had recorded the men's faces and their license plate perfectly before the power was cut. A few hours later, the police caught the cartel van on the dark highway outside the city. They arrested the dangerous boss, his men, and the traitor, Arthur. Emma was officially declared a completely innocent victim. She became the most important witness to destroy the criminal gang forever. The terrifying night finally ended. The sun slowly rose, bringing warm, golden light to the quiet neighborhood. The police finished their work and left the house. Emma locked her doors and made a hot cup of tea. She felt incredibly tired, but deeply peaceful. She walked out into her backyard. The cool morning air smelled fresh and clean. The deep rectangular hole was still there in the dirt, looking like an empty, dark grave. Emma watched Cooper carefully. She wondered if the dog would start digging again. Cooper walked slowly toward the corner of the wooden fence. He stopped near the empty hole. He lowered his head and took a long, deep breath. He smelled the fresh dirt and the green grass. He did not smell any artificial cologne or toxic fear hormones anymore. The dangerous object was completely gone. The smell of lies and death had vanished from his home. Cooper did not scratch the dirt. He did not growl or bark. Instead, the brave dog let out a long, happy sigh and lay down comfortably on the soft green grass. He rolled on his back, enjoying the warm morning sun on his golden fur. Emma smiled softly, tears of pure gratitude filling her eyes. She sat down on the grass next to her best friend and rubbed his warm belly. The $1 million secret had almost destroyed her life. The people she trusted most had betrayed her for greed. But her loyal dog had seen the truth that humans could not. He had fought the darkness and won. His territory was finally safe, and their pack was unbroken.